Part 2 of Transformers and the 1027 event with Hasbro. Now we're going to be shifting away from Mark Mayer and his lovely Fallen figure, and let's talk about the main event, what's been teased by Nate for over a month now. We have Nate, we have Evan. We're going to be talking about Devastator. They're going to break down all the little things. We got a little bit of some reveals of some pieces. We got the EPs for 2 of them, a Resin proto for the complete product. Let's talk about Transformers Studio Series 86 Devastator and how he's going to roll out. So, they showed us 2 products. They showed us the Deluxe class Bonecrusher and the Voyager class Scrapper. How this is going to work is, and this is something that has to be established with this one, especially because it's all about scale and everything, and people are wondering about the sizes of figures. Price points in this case have less to do about the size of the figure and more to do with the plastic that's involved, the amount of parts, pieces, extra stuff on the side. There is obviously going to be a very strong emphasis on all the robot modes being the same size regardless of what they're labeled in terms of price points, because they'll have extra stuff with them. What do I mean by that? Well, when we talk about, let's say, the Voyager class Scrapper, he's going to be the same size in robot mode as the Bonecrusher that's a Deluxe class, but he's going to come with Devastator's gun. Big old gun, breaks into 2 pieces, that could be extra accessories. He also has his own individual gun. And because in the case of Scrapper, because he makes a lower part of Devastator, in this case one of his feet, he has to have extra joints and pieces because he's a combiner element that's going to have articulation for posing and stuff. Where a pose in the case of something like, again, getting back to the Bonecrusher, not so much a case because of his place in the whole magic of this being an arm. Now, that being said, let's talk about these guys. So, from what I could take right away from it, these look really good. It's something where, the individual robot modes are way better than what we got with Combiner Wars in terms of the articulation. I find they're not as, I guess we could say, beefier that the Combiner Wars ones were in robot mode, the individual robots. It does a better job of looking like the animation model. There was a strong effort with that. And these were both designed by Evan Brooks and Hasui-san at Takara Tomy. So there was a strong emphasis, hey, this is Studio Series 86. We need to go with really good screen accuracy and also scale being an issue that always comes up. And I think they're doing a good job with it. The coloring, according to Evan, these are the EP2s, so they're not the final version. Supposedly, they want to go with a slightly more tinge of green and a less from the yellow from what we're looking at right now. But it looks pretty good otherwise. The Bonecrusher, again, comes with his own gun, Deluxe class. The Voyager class Scrapper, again, comes with Devastator's gun that breaks into 2 pieces as well as his own gun too. So he has a little more extra plastic, and that's how we kind of, as to quote Nate, do the math, with all of this. And those 2 are planned to release in April. Now, this was another thing that they wanted to talk about, and I'll put it on the screen here. The whole emphasis on a very tight release date so that everyone's able to get their hands on all of this product as soon as possible and not have a breakdown situation where one limb is so far off from the other 2 that it ends up becoming difficult to complete your combiner. So you got the April date that is tentative right now for the Deluxe Bonecrusher and the Voyager class Scrapper. And then in July, they want to have a Commander class box that'll have 2 other members in that of a Voyager class Long Haul and a Voyager class Hook at $89.99. Now, obviously 2 Voyagers don't add up to that of an $89.99 price point for a Commander class, but the reason for that is, again, it has less to do with the size of the figures and more to do with what you're getting. So these guys are obviously going to scale, despite them also being Voyagers, will scale with your other members, but this box is going to have all those Devastator combiner parts. If you've ever messed with an original Devastator, he has a ton of stuff. He's always been a parts former. He is the OG to our combiners that we know today. After we had Devastator with his 6 pieces and his parts elements, we leaned more into something that was much more self-contained and together with that of our, we'll call it Operation Combination combiners, our traditional combiners that we got afterwards with Superion and Menasor and stuff. And yeah, they had their pieces too, the fists and the head and then the feet plates, but they were a lot more together, where with something like Devastator, that was a lot less harder to do if you didn't have those extra elements and pieces to make arms and legs and stuff. So we're going to be seeing that here, where this Commander class box set, which will come out in July, which will feature 2 of them, will have all of those extra pieces. Probably will have Devastator's head, his 2 forearm pieces, probably the crotch piece, the chest piece, and everything. An interesting thing that Evan mentioned that he tried to trickle away from, but he still kind of said, Hasui-san did some really clever stuff where he said, well, all those extra pieces that are going to be included, maybe we could turn those into features. And he made a quick mention of a dump truck, aka in the case probably, let's assume here, long haul, pulling a trailer behind him and everyone being confused by that. And it probably means that the trailer transforms into like the chest of Devastator, something his chest, crest or whatever. So there's going to be probably some interesting elements, much like what we saw maybe with Astro Train, where he had this coal holder that ended up the coal tender, which actually ended up transforming into his, his platform and stuff. So extra elements there. Sounds very interesting how they're going to go about that. And that's really cool too. And then in September, they're going to finish the last 2, the Deluxe class Scavenger and the Voyager class Mixmaster. And it's the same thing also. They're probably going to feature some extra pieces here and there to make sense for a Voyager class for the Mixmaster. And again, because Mixmaster makes legs, he's obviously going to have more articulation, so that makes sense for the Voyager. But otherwise, they're going to scale all together nicely as a team in robot mode. So that's, again, I'm guilty of it. Every time I have a combiner team, I display it in my collection as the giant combiner. And stuff like the individual robot modes get totally thrown to the wayside and never enjoyed. So it's something where I appreciate at least the extra effort to make some really good robot modes that individually look like their animation models, and on top of that scale well with each other, when in most cases that stuff is sometimes ignored. But looks really good. Then after all of that, they brought in the gray resin prototype of Devastator combined to give us an idea of scale and how it works, like let's say next to our Commander Class 86 Optimus Prime, how it works next to obviously the individual limbs and how tall they're going to be, and more importantly, how big it is next to our previous combiner that we got in the Legacy Menasor of the Stunticons. And we're seeing that they're also recognizing how the Combiner Wars one back in the day was this massive Titan class, and all the other Combiner Wars that they got of combiners were paling in comparison of size. So they're bringing something closer together with how the animation was, which is combiners all more or less kind of had the same size, maybe slightly bigger, slightly smaller of each other, but more or less stayed in that same height. And they're going to keep that. So you could put this Studio Series 86 Devastator next to your Menasor, and it's not something that's going to look weird like they did before with the Combiner Wars Devastator 2, any of those combiners that we got during Combiner Wars. So pretty cool. Packaging art this time around. We got to see the boxes also. The art for this one is not done by Marcelo. I'm not familiar with who is doing the box art for the Studio Series 86 Devastator. Also interesting about the boxes, no more Studio Series numbering, at least here with these ones. I don't know if that's just for the Devastator or if that's going to be something that's going to carry over with most of the Studio Series items going into 2025, but it is something to note that's going on with that. This is very cool. Again, 2025, celebrating the 40th anniversary of Devastator in two ways. His toy came out in 1985. The episode of Heavy Metal War debuted in 1985. Even though it was a season 1 episode, it was the last episode of season 1, so it was in 1985 when he debuted. So it's a 40th anniversary Devastator year next year in a lot of different ways, and this is a big way to celebrate that. The goal for them, again, between April and September, in that 6-month span, to make sure that they get out all of these figures and give people an opportunity to put it out there and get an opportunity instead of missing out on a limb and everything falling apart. They also said that there's no plans, at least in the first 2 years, to do like a big old box set of these guys afterwards. So if you want your Devastator, you're going to have to buy them as individual limbs. I feel like almost the box set thing, especially with the Menasor, was probably also more of a reaction to what happened with Breakdown. So that's why we got that box set with Menasor afterwards, the fact where this one here, clearly they're going to try to fix the mistakes that they made before. But it looks really cool. And again, same thing like the Fallen. Tomorrow at 1 p.m., October 28th, pre-orders for the first 2 limbs will go up for Hasbro Premium Pulse members. And then, of course, after the fact at 2 p.m., then it'll be opened up to everyone else. I'm pretty excited about this. This looks good. I like the scale. It looks really nice. Is it something that 100% will replace your Combiner Wars Devastator? That really is your own kind of opinion. I mean, I really like my Combiner Wars Devastator because it's a big old crazy Devastator. The CEO of Symbiote Studios kind of said it best, maybe Combiner Wars Devastator can now be your masterpiece Devastator in your display. And this one that we'll get here will fit more in that of your Studio Series and Generations flavored kind of stuff. So that kind of makes sense. I kind of agree with that sentiment. But yeah, let me know what you think about all of this. I think it looks great. We're going to get more updates on this. We have one more segment we're going to talk about, but I think I'm going to save it for tomorrow because it's in relation to some business related stuff, and Nate kind of touched on it. But I want to kind of deconstruct it a little more, and maybe we'll see it as a Monday segment tomorrow here on the Transformer Slag podcast. But thank you again for listening. Thank you for tuning in on 2 Sunday segments that we normally don't do. It's the road to TFCon Baltimore, so I figured I'd do a little extra segments because you probably won't get anything on Friday and Saturday. So enjoy it while you can, and I'll talk to you in the near future.